Welcome to Daily Office Devotions. I'm Reggie Kidd, and I'm so very glad to be with you. We're in week 2 of a 2-week detour from the daily office. Instead, we'll be thinking through various facets of worship and how our Lord provides meaningful communion with Him through our formal corporate worship as well as in individual worship in our daily devotions. The thoughts offered here are excerpts from articles I wrote for Worship Leader magazine a few years ago. Worship that is most freaking awesome. One year, I had to miss Father's Day because of an out-of-town speaking engagement. I got home so late that night, I dropped my bags in the front hallway and went to bed. The next morning, I got up at my usual 0:30, made coffee, and headed for my study. When I walked bleary-eyed into my study, I caught a presence in my peripheral vision. I turned to look, and yikes! My coffee went everywhere. Freak out, goosebumps. A tall person, thin, expressionless, motionless, was standing there, staring at me. After a few seconds, I realized that the person was a life-sized cardboard cutout of Sheldon Cooper from the TV series The Big Bang Theory. It turns out my wife thought this would be a fun welcome home surprise. Bazinga! I laughed and laughed. Ultimate awe. When heaven and earth converge, or perhaps better, when the thin veil between them gets drawn back, it's the sort of thing that makes your hair stand on end. God covers Mount Sinai with a blazing fire and darkness and gloom and a tempest and the sound of a trumpet and a voice whose words made the hearers beg that not another word be spoken to them. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 18. According to the writer to the Hebrews, there is a presence among us even more goosebump raising than Mount Sinai's blazing fire, darkness, gloom, tempest, trumpet, voice. In these last days, he says, God has spoken through His Son, the reflection of God's glory and the exact imprint of God's very being. Hebrews chapter 1, verses 2 through 3. Supremely amazing. Not only that, but through the eternal Spirit, this Son has offered Himself without blemish to God to purify our conscience from dead works to worship the living God. Hebrews chapter 9, verse 14. He could do so because He is the true Melchizedek, a priest and king whose ministry could not be cut short by death. See Hebrews chapter 7. As a result, He is now able to be in two places at once. Physically in heaven at the Father's right hand, where He is, as the new Melchizedek, liturgist or worship leader in the sanctuary in the true tent, Hebrews chapter 8, verse 2. And spiritually, note, I've got a capital S there in my mind, among us, leading us in that worship. There and here at the same time, He pulls back the veil between heaven and earth and creates a reality that is truly goosebump raising. That is what we taste in worship. The 4th century Greek-speaking church created a word for Christ's goosebump-causing presence among us as our liturgist and worship leader. Fricodestates. It's an adjective in the superlative degree based on a verb, friso, that means literally shudder, get goosebumps, or metaphorically be overcome with awe. It wouldn't be far off in modern vernacular to render fricodestates as most freaking awesome. Commune. For over 1,000 years, the locus of awesomeness was the presence of the Lord at the table. Thus, the 4th century's Cyril of Jerusalem said that at the Eucharist, we lift up our hearts to the Lord because we have come to a fricodestates hour. And rightly has the church celebrated that awesomeness because our great liturgist, the new Melchizedek, has brought us to an altar from which those who serve the tent have no right to eat. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 9. But from which we do. Faith by hearing. In the Reformation of the 16th century, the locus of awesomeness became the presence of the Lord in the proclamation of the Word and the rediscovery of the Bible in worship. And rightly has the church celebrated that awesomeness, because our great liturgist is among us declaring the Father's name to us. Hebrews chapter 2, verse 12a. Intercessory evangelism. In the great awakenings and revivals of the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries, the locus of awesomeness became the presence of the Lord in the conversion of the soul, and by extension, in the mission to the world. And rightly has the church celebrated that awesomeness, because our great liturgist is at the Father's right hand, ever interceding that the lost will be found, and the found will be cleansed, preserved, and gathered to the Father at the end. Hebrews chapter 7, verse 25. Inhabited praise. In the wake of the charismatic renewal, the locus of awesomeness has become the Lord's habitation in the praises. Psalm 22, verse 3. And rightly has the church celebrated that awesomeness, because the risen Christ, chief musician in the new order of Melchizedek, sings hymns to the Father in the assembly, says Hebrews chapter 2, verse 12b. Holy convergence. Oh, for the day when we all know Christ's Frequentestate's presence in all aspects of worship, at the table, in the word, in intercession, and in praise. Be blessed this day.